Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. The chandeliers in the Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom sparkled like 1,000 tiny stars, casting golden light across a sea of tuxedos and glittering gowns. I stood there, my emerald dress catching every flicker, feeling like I'd wandered into someone else's dream. My hands trembled, but I kept my chin high, my eyes locked on Noah Bennett as he knelt before me, a velvet box open in his hand. The crowd, New York's elite, from CEOs to senators, held its breath, their murmurs fading into a hush. Noah's gray eyes, usually so guarded, were raw with hope, and his voice carried a weight that silenced the room. "Ava Mitchell," he said, steady despite the cameras flashing around us. "I don't need this world if I don't have you. Will you marry me?" Time stopped. My heart pounded so loud I was sure the microphones caught it. This wasn't just a proposal. It was a defiance, a middle finger to everyone who'd whispered I wasn't good enough, who'd called me the waitress, like it was a curse. I saw it all flash before me. The nights I'd cried myself to sleep, the headlines that tore me apart, the moments I'd almost walked away. But here was Noah, the man who'd seen me when I felt invisible, choosing me in front of the world. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, my voice breaking. "Yes." The room erupted, applause, gasps, a few skeptical murmurs, but Noah didn't care. He slid the ring onto my finger, stood, and pulled me into a kiss that drowned out everything else. His arms were warm, his lips firm, and for one perfect second, it was just us. No gossip blogs, no boardrooms, no rules. Just Ava and Noah, two people who'd fought like hell to stand here together. How did we get here? How did a spilled cup of coffee, a clumsy mistake in a crowded restaurant, lead to this? To understand that, you need to go back to the beginning. Back to when I was just a girl from Rochester, scraping by in New York City, with no idea that a billionaire was about to change my life forever. My life wasn't the kind you'd write songs about. At 28, I was a waitress at Vine and Olive, a swanky restaurant in Flatiron where the walls were exposed brick, the lights were dim, and the smell of fresh-baked sourdough hung in the air like a promise. I lived in a shoebox studio in East Village, the kind of place with a fold-out bed that creaked like it held grudges, a window that rattled in the wind, and a coffee table buried under textbooks for my online business management classes. Every morning, I'd drag myself out of bed at 5 a.m., splash cold water on my face, and stare into the chipped bathroom mirror. "One day at a time, Ava," I'd whisper, echoing the words my mom, Diane, used to say before cancer took her when I was 18. Some days, I believed it. Others, it felt like a lie to keep me going. I'd moved to New York 5 years ago, chasing a dream I could barely name. Something about making it, proving I wasn't just the girl from Rochester who'd lost everything when Mom died. But dreams don't pay rent. So I worked doubles at Vine and Olive, memorizing orders, dodging handsy customers, and smiling through the exhaustion. My nights were spent hunched over my laptop, studying for a degree I hoped would get me out of aprons and into an office someday. Friends? I didn't have time. Dating? Forget it. The only men in my life were coworkers or guys snapping their fingers for more wine, barely glancing at the name tag pinned to my black shirt. That morning, I was running on 3 hours of sleep, my eyes gritty from a late-night study session. I pulled on my uniform, black pants, white blouse, hair twisted into a neat bun, and grabbed my Metro card, already mentally calculating tips. Vine and Olive was a gold mine if you worked the right shifts, and I needed every penny for next semester's tuition. As I rode the subway, squeezed between a guy in a suit and a woman with a screaming toddler, I thought about Mom. She'd believed in me, even when I didn't. "You're tougher than you know, Ava," she'd said, her voice weak but fierce in that hospital bed. I clung to that memory like a lifeline, letting it push me through another day. At the restaurant, I clocked in and found Jasmine, my best friend and fellow waitress, restocking the coffee station. Jasmine was a single mom with a laugh that could light up a room and a knack for reading people like they were open books. Her curly hair was tucked under a headband, and her sneakers squeaked against the hardwood floor. "You look like death warmed over," she said, tossing me a sugar packet with a grin. "Rough night?" "Quiz on supply chain logistics," I groaned, catching the packet and slipping it into my apron. "I'm one bad grade away from dropping out." "Nah, you got this," she said, her voice firm. "You're Ava Mitchell, future CEO. This place is just a pit stop." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Yasmin was my cheerleader, but even she couldn't see how close I was to breaking. The truth was, I felt stuck, trapped in a loop of shifts and assignments with no finish line in sight. I wasn't living. I was surviving, and some days that was all I could manage. "Come on," she said, nudging me toward the dining room. "Let's make some rich folks happy and score those tips." The lunch shift was hectic, plates clattering, voices overlapping, the air thick with the scent of garlic and rosemary. I was in the zone, refilling waters, recommending the roasted branzino, dodging elbows, when the front door swung open, and the whole place seemed to shift. It wasn't just the chime of the bell, it was the way the staff straightened, the way conversations dipped, like the room knew something big had walked in. I turned, balancing a tray of empty glasses, and saw him, Noah Bennett, flanked by 3 guys in suits so sharp they could cut glass. I'd seen his face before, on the cover of Forbes in those tech titans to watch lists, but up close, he was something else. Tall, maybe 6'1", with dark brown hair that curled slightly at the ends and gray eyes that scanned the room like they missed nothing. His navy suit fit like it was made for him, because it probably was, and there was this quiet intensity about him, like he carried the weight of 1,000 decisions without breaking a sweat. Our manager, Tony, practically sprinted to greet them, his voice dripping with deference. "Mr. Bennett, welcome to Vine and Olive. Ava will take care of you today." I froze, the tray wobbling slightly. Tony's eyes met mine, a warning flashing. "Don't screw this up." Noah Bennett wasn't just a customer. He was the kind of guy who could make or break a place like this with a single review. And me? I was the girl who'd barely slept, who'd spilled ketchup on her shoes an hour ago, now tasked with serving a billionaire. I plastered on my best smile, the one I'd perfected over years of dealing with demanding diners, and approached their table. "Welcome to Vine and Olive, gentlemen," I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "Can I start you with some drinks?" Noah's eyes flicked up from his phone, and for a split second they locked on mine. It wasn't a stare exactly, just a look, like he was sizing me up, seeing more than the apron and name tag. Then he nodded, glancing at his companions. "Sparkling water for the table," he said, his voice deep, clipped, like he was used to being heard the first time. I nodded, jotting it down, and got to work. The lunch went smoothly. I was attentive but not pushy, quick with the breadbasket, spot on with the wine pairings. Noah barely spoke, focused on his associates' talk of mergers and algorithms, but I caught him watching me once or twice, his expression unreadable. I told myself it was nothing. Guys like him didn't notice girls like me. Not really. Then came the coffee. They'd ordered espressos, and I was pouring Noah's, careful to keep the cup steady. One of his associates cracked a joke, something about a rival's stock tanking, and Noah laughed, a real laugh that softened his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. He shifted in his chair, his elbow brushing my arm, and that's when it happened. The coffee pot tipped, and a stream of dark liquid splashed across his pristine white shirt and custom jacket. I gasped, mortified as the stain spread like a crime scene. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I grabbed a stack of napkins, my face burning, already picturing Tony firing me on the spot. That suit probably cost more than my rent for a year. Noah looked down at the mess, then up at me, and I braced for the fallout. A cold remark, a demand for my manager, something to match the chaos in my head. But instead he smiled. Not a forced smile, but a genuine one, warm and a little mischievous. "Well," he said, dabbing at the stain with a napkin, "guess I've got an excuse to skip my next meeting now." His associates laughed, more nervous than amused, like they weren't sure if they should be mad. Tony materialized out of nowhere, apologies spilling out like water. "Mr. Bennett, we'll cover the dry cleaning. Comp your meal, anything you need." Noah waved him off, his eyes still on me. "It's fine," he said, his tone easy but firm. "My elbow, my fault. Though I wouldn't mind a fresh cup, Ava, if you're up for it." I nodded, my hands shaking as I backed away to the kitchen, relief mixing with confusion. He'd said my name, read it off my tag, sure, but the way it rolled off his tongue felt different, like he'd meant to say it. I told myself I was imagining things. He was Noah Bennett, tech genius, billionaire, the kind of guy who dated models and heiresses, not waitresses who could barely afford their MetroCard. But when I brought the new espresso, he thanked me with that same smile, and I felt it. A spark, small but undeniable, like a match catching in the dark. I didn't know it then, but that spark was about to set my whole world on fire. Back in the kitchen, Jasmine cornered me, her eyes wide. "Okay, spill the tea, Ava. You just dumped coffee on Noah Bennett, and he's acting like you did him a favor. What's the deal?" I laughed, shaking my head as I refilled a water pitcher. "No deal. He's just nice, I guess." "Nice?" she snorted, tying her apron tighter. "Girl, billionaires don't do nice unless they want something. Watch yourself." She wasn't wrong. I'd seen enough customers, rich ones especially, play charming to get what they wanted, a free dessert, a phone number, a power trip. But Noah hadn't felt like that. His smile wasn't calculated, his kindness not a performance. Or maybe I was just tired, reading too much into a moment that didn't mean anything. That night, as I rode the subway home, my feet aching and my apron stuffed with tips, I couldn't stop thinking about him. About the way he'd said my name, the way his laugh had made the room feel smaller, warmer. I leaned my head against the window, the city blurring past, and let myself wonder, just for a second, what it would be like to be seen by someone like him. Not as a waitress, not as a student scraping by, but as Ava, the girl who still believed in dreams she'd buried long ago. If you've ever felt like you're just background noise in someone else's story, like your dreams are out of reach, then stick with me. Ava Mitchell's journey is just beginning, and trust me, it's one you don't want to miss. Hit that subscribe button to follow her and Noah as they navigate a world that wants to keep them apart, and drop a comment below. What do you think happens when a waitress and a billionaire cross paths? Let's hear your guesses. I couldn't shake him. Noah Bennett, with his easy smile and gray eyes that seemed to see straight through my apron, had lodged himself in my head like a song I didn't mean to hum. That coffee spill at Vine and Olive should have been a one-off, a clumsy moment I'd laugh about someday. But here I was, days later, checking the restaurant door every time it chimed, my heart doing stupid flips at the thought of him walking through. I told myself it was ridiculous. Billionaires don't linger over waitresses, not in real life. But when I caught myself smoothing my hair before my shift, I knew I was in trouble. Vine and Olive was buzzing that Tuesday night, the air thick with the scent of garlic butter and red wine, the dining room packed with suits and sequins. I was weaving through tables, balancing a tray of martinis, when Jasmine grabbed my elbow, her grin wide enough to light up Flatiron. "Guess who's back?" she whispered, nodding toward the corner booth. "Mr. Big Shot, solo this time. And he's asking for your section." My stomach dropped. then soared, like I'd missed a step going downstairs. I glanced over, and there he was. Noah. No entourage, just him in a black button-down that hugged his shoulders, his hair slightly mussed like he'd run his hands through it. He was scrolling his phone, but when he looked up and saw me, his face softened into a smile that felt private, like it was just for me. "Get it together, Ava," I muttered under my breath, adjusting my tray and heading over. "Hey, Noah," I said, proud of how casual I sounded. "No coffee tonight, I'm guessing." He laughed, setting his phone down. "Nah, I'm keeping it safe. Maybe a bourbon, neat, and whatever you recommend for dinner." I raised an eyebrow, jotting it down. Bold move, trusting my taste. "You sure about that?" "I'm sure," he said, his eyes holding mine a beat too long, warm and teasing. "Surprise me, Ava." I nodded, my cheeks heating as I turned away, aware of Yasmin watching from the bar, her smirk practically audible. I suggested the pan-seared scallops, safe but fancy, and for the next hour, I felt his presence like a pulse, steady and distracting. He didn't talk much, just ate slowly, asking small questions whenever I passed by. How long had I been in the city? What was my favorite spot in New York? Nothing deep, but the way he leaned in, like my answers were the only thing that mattered, made my usual walls feel flimsy. When he left, he slipped a tip under his plate, enough to cover my electric bill for a month, and a note scribbled on the receipt. "Great call on the scallops. See you soon." I tucked it in my pocket, telling myself it was just a nice gesture, nothing more. But Yasmin wasn't buying it. "Girl, that man's got it bad," she said in the break room, kicking off her sneakers. "Nobody tips like that for fish." "He's just polite," I said, avoiding her eyes as I untied my apron. "You're reading too much into it." "Polite?" she snorted, tossing her gum wrapper at me. "Ava, he's practically camping out here. Wake up and smell the bourbon. He's into you." I rolled my eyes, but her words stuck, burrowing deep. Noah came back twice more that week, always alone, always asking for me. We'd talk about the book I was reading for class, about his weird obsession with old vinyl records, and each time I felt a little less like the waitress and a little more like Ava. Not the Ava who paid bills or studied until 2 a.m., but the one who laughed too loud, who dreamed bigger than her shoebox apartment allowed. It was dangerous, letting myself feel that way, but I couldn't stop. By Friday, I was a mess. Half excited, half terrified, caught between wanting to see him and wanting to run from whatever this was. He showed up late, just as my shift was winding down, the restaurant emptying out except for a few stragglers nursing their wine. I was wiping down the bar, the fairy lights above casting soft shadows, when he slid onto a stool, his jacket slung over his arm. "Long day?" I asked, tossing the rag aside, my heart doing that annoying flip again. "You could say that," he said, loosening his tie with a sigh. "Meetings, more meetings, and a board that thinks I'm their personal robot." "You?" "Same, minus the board," I said, leaning against the counter. "Just Tony breathing down my neck about napkin folds." He chuckled, his eyes crinkling. "Sounds like we both need a break. You free tomorrow night? I know a place. Not fancy, just different." I froze, my hands pausing on a glass I'd been drying. This wasn't a casual chat anymore. This was an invitation, a step into something I wasn't sure I could handle. "Noah," I said, careful, "I'm not exactly your crowd, you know? I don't do penthouse parties or whatever." "Good," he said, his voice low, earnest. "Because I'm not looking for my crowd. I'm looking for you. Just a walk, Ava. Battery Park, maybe some food truck tacos, no pressure." "No." I studied him, searching for the catch, but all I saw was sincerity. A guy who'd rather be here talking to me than anywhere else. against every instinct screaming to play it safe. I nodded. Okay, 7 o'clock. But you're buying the tacos. Deal, he said, his grin wide enough to make me forget my nerves, at least for a second. Saturday evening, I stood at the edge of Battery Park, my sneakers scuffing the pavement, my stomach a knot of anticipation. I'd gone simple, jeans, a green sweater, my hair loose, but I still felt like I was walking into a spotlight. The park was alive, couples strolling, kids chasing seagulls, the Statue of Liberty glowing faintly across the water. Noah was waiting by a bench, 2 paper bags in hand, his flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He looked normal, not like a billionaire, just a guy with tacos and a smile that made my knees weak. Hope you like al pastor, he said, handing me a bag, the smell of cilantro and lime wafting up. Best truck in the city. Bold claim, I said, taking a bite, the flavors exploding on my tongue. But damn, you might be right. We walked along the waterfront, the city lights shimmering like a second skyline, our shoulders brushing as we dodged cyclists. He asked about my classes, and I told him about my dream to start an event planning business. Small weddings, community festivals, things that made people feel seen without breaking the bank. I braced for him to brush it off, but he listened, nodding like it was as big as one of his mergers. That's not small, Ava, he said, stopping by a railing, the water lapping below. It's real. Most people in my world, they're chasing headlines, not meaning. You're different. I looked away, my cheeks warm, the compliment landing heavier than I expected. You don't know me that well, I said, half teasing, half scared he'd see too much. I know enough, he said, his voice soft but sure. I see you, Ava. The way you work, the way you care. You're not just getting by. You're building something. The air shifted, heavier now, and I felt his gaze like a touch. We'd stopped walking, the park quiet around us, the city's hum a distant pulse. He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, and I didn't pull away. My heart raced, every nerve awake, as his fingers slid between mine, warm and steady. Ava, he said, almost a whisper, his eyes searching mine. Tell me I'm not imagining this. I swallowed, my voice barely there. You're not. He leaned in then, slow, giving me time to back away. But I didn't. His lips met mine, soft at first, then deeper, like he'd been holding back for weeks and couldn't anymore. I tasted lime and salt from the tacos, felt the warmth of his hand at my waist, pulling me closer. The kiss was electric, a spark that lit every corner of me, and I kissed him back, my fingers curling into his shirt, like I could anchor myself to this moment and never let it go. When we pulled apart, both of us breathless, the park seemed brighter, the stars sharper. He rested his forehead against mine, his laugh shaky. I've wanted to do that since the coffee spill, he said. I laughed, my heart still pounding. Took you long enough. We stood there, wrapped in each other, the city moving around us like it didn't matter. But even then, I felt it. A shadow at the edges, a whisper of doubt. This wasn't just a kiss. It was a door opening, and I wasn't sure what lay on the other side. That night, I walked home, my lips still tingling, my head a mess of hope and fear. Noah texted as I unlocked my door. Tonight was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. I smiled, but Jasmine's voice echoed in my mind. Be careful, girl. His world's not like ours. I pushed it down, climbing into bed, the pendant from my mom cool against my skin. For the first time in years, I felt alive, not just surviving, but living. But deep down, I knew nothing this bright could stay simple for long. I should have known it wouldn't stay simple. That night at Small's Jazz Club, with Noah's hand in mine and the saxophone weaving magic around us, felt like a bubble. One I wanted to live in forever, but bubbles pop, and real life has a way of creeping in, sharp and unforgiving. Noah and I were building something fragile and bright, but the world doesn't let you keep things like that without a fight. And the fight was about to start. It began with stolen moments. Noah would text me, short, casual messages like "busy tonight" or "found a spot you'd love," and we'd meet in places where no one would care about a tech billionaire and a waitress, a hole-in-the-wall taco joint in Williamsburg, where we'd share a plate of carnitas and laugh over the hot sauce that made him wince, a late-night stroll through Battery Park, the city lights dancing on the water, his arm brushing mine as we dodged joggers and dog walkers. Those moments felt like ours, untouched by the rules of his world or the grind of mine. One evening, we ended up at a diner in the village, the kind with sticky vinyl booths and waitresses who called you sugar. Noah looked out of place in his tailored jacket, but he didn't care, sliding in across from me with a grin. The jukebox was playing some old Springsteen tune, and I teased him about it. "Bet you've never heard Born to Run before," I said, stealing a fry from his plate. "Too busy with your tech bro playlists." He laughed, leaning forward, his eyes catching the neon glow. "I'll have you know I had a punk phase in college, mohawk and everything." "No way," I snorted, trying to picture it. "Pics, or it didn't happen." "Sorry, burned all the evidence," he said, but his smile was softer now, more open. "You'd have liked me then, less polished." "I like you now," I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. My cheeks burned, but he didn't look away, just reached across the table, his fingers grazing mine. His touch was light, but it sent a shiver through me, warm and electric, like the first note of a song you know you'll love. "Careful, Ava," he said, his voice low, teasing, but not entirely. "You keep saying stuff like that, I might start thinking you mean it." I pulled my hand back, laughing to cover the way my heart was racing. "Don't get cocky, Bennett. I've got standards." But the truth was, I did mean it. Noah wasn't just the guy from the magazines anymore. He was the guy who remembered I liked my coffee black, who listened when I rambled about my event planning dreams, who made me feel like I was more than my apron and tired smile. And that scared me, because feelings like that come with strings, and I wasn't sure I could handle what they'd pull loose. Back at Vine and Olive, things were getting complicated. Noah's visits were less frequent now. He had meetings in San Francisco, Tokyo, places I'd only seen in movies. But when he showed up, it was like the whole restaurant knew. Tony would hover, Dylan, another waiter, would shoot me side-eye, and even Jasmine couldn't resist a jab. "Girl, you're glowing," she said one night, catching me checking my phone in the break room. "That's the Noah Bennett effect, huh?" "Stop it," I said, shoving my phone into my pocket. "We're just hanging out." "Hanging out?" She raised an eyebrow, popping a piece of gum. "Ava, nobody hangs out with a billionaire unless they're catching feelings. You sure you know what you're doing?" I didn't. That was the problem. Every time I was with Noah, it felt right. Too right, like I was borrowing someone else's life. But at work, I was still Ava the waitress, dodging Dylan's snarky comments and Tony's lectures about side work. Dylan was the worst lately, always lurking when Noah was around, making little digs that stung more than they should. "So, Ava," he said one afternoon, leaning against the bar while I rolled silverware, "what's it like serving Mr. Big Shot? He tip you in stock options yet?" I kept my eyes on the napkins, folding them tight. "Just doing my job, Dylan. Maybe you should try it sometime." He smirked, undeterred. "Oh, I'm doing fine. Just wondering how you landed the golden ticket. Got any tips for the rest of us?" I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to snap. Dylan had been at Vine and Olive longer than me, always angling for the best shifts, and he didn't like that Noah's attention was shifting the spotlight my way. I told myself it was just jealousy, nothing to worry about, but Jasmine's voice echoed in my head. Watch your back, girl. People get weird when they smell money. The real test came a month later, when Noah invited me to a gala at his family's estate in Hudson Valley. It's for a clean energy initiative, he said over the phone, his voice casual but careful. Big crowd, good cause. I'd love for you to be there. I hesitated, my stomach twisting. Noah, I don't exactly have a closet full of ball gowns. And won't people talk? Let them, he said, a defiant edge to his tone. You're not my secret, Ava. I want you there. I'll handle the dress. Jasmine can help pick something out, please. I couldn't say no, not when he sounded like that. Like my yes mattered more than any deal he'd ever closed. Jasmine was thrilled, dragging me to a boutique in Soho, where we found a navy dress that hugged my curves without screaming for attention. She did my makeup in her apartment, her daughter giggling as she handed us brushes. You're gonna knock his socks off, Jasmine said, blending blush across my cheeks. But seriously, Ava, be careful. Those people up there, they're not like us. I know, I said, my voice quieter than I meant. I'll be fine. But I wasn't fine. The drive to Hudson Valley felt like crossing into another world. Rolling hills, mansions tucked behind iron gates, air that smelled like pine instead of subway exhaust. The estate was a sprawl of stone and glass, with ivy climbing the walls and a driveway lined with cars that cost more than my degree. I stepped out of the hired car Noah sent, my heels wobbling on the gravel, feeling like an imposter in my borrowed dress. Inside, the gala was a blur of crystal flutes and fake laughter. Noah was already working the room, shaking hands with men in tuxes and women dripping in diamonds. He caught my eye from across the ballroom and smiled, but he couldn't stay by my side, not with investors circling like sharks. He'd warned me we'd need to keep things low-key to avoid gossip, but knowing that didn't make it easier. I tried to mingle, clutching a glass of champagne I barely sipped, but every conversation felt like a test I was failing. A woman in a pearl choker asked what I did, her smile thinning when I said, hospitality. A guy in a bow tie droned on about his yacht, barely noticing I hadn't spoken. I was used to being overlooked. It came with the job. But this was different. These people didn't just ignore me. They judged me, their eyes sliding over my dress like they could see the price tag. Then I met Claire Hudson. She glided over during a lull in the speeches, her blonde hair swept into a flawless updo, her silver gown catching the light like liquid mercury. She was maybe 34, with the kind of polish that screamed old money, and Noah had mentioned her once, a friend from his prep school days, someone his mom adored. You're Ava, right? She said, extending a manicured hand, her smile bright but sharp. Noah's told me about you. Quite the surprise. Thanks, I said, matching her smile, though my grip on the champagne flute tightened. It's great to be here. Oh, I bet, she said, sipping her drink, her eyes never leaving mine. Noah's always had a soft spot for underdogs. It's charming, really, though I wonder how long it'll last. The words landed like a jab, but I didn't flinch. Guess we'll find out, I said, keeping my voice even. He seems pretty sure about what he wants. Her laugh was light, practiced, like she'd spent years perfecting it. He does, doesn't he? But men like Noah, they come back to what's expected. Always do. Before I could respond, Noah appeared, his hand brushing my elbow as he greeted us. Claire, Ava, he said, his voice warm but guarded, like he sensed the tension. Everything okay here? Perfect, Claire said, her smile widening. Ava's delightful. We were just getting to know each other. Noah's eyes flicked to me, a silent question. I nodded, letting him know I could hold my own. But the knot in my stomach didn't loosen. He got pulled away by a board member, leaving me with Claire's words ringing in my ears. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing air, and that's when I heard them. Two women by the sinks, their voices low but not low enough. "Bennett needs to settle down," one said, reapplying her lipstick. "The board's getting antsy. He can't keep playing with distractions." "Claire Hudson would be ideal," the other replied, adjusting her earrings. "Her family's got the right connections. Investors love that." I froze, my hands gripping the counter, my reflection pale in the mirror. They didn't say my name, but they didn't have to. I was the distraction, the thing that didn't belong in Noah's world of private jets and power plays. I thought about my apartment, my student loans, the way I'd spent years building a life from nothing. And now, standing in this marble bathroom, I wondered if Claire was right, if I was just a phase, a story Noah would tell one day with a laugh. I slipped out of the gala early, texting Noah that I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a total lie. My head was spinning, my chest tight with doubts I couldn't shake. Back in my apartment, I kicked off my heels and stared out the window at the city lights. The dress pooled around me like a lie I'd tried to wear. Loving Noah felt like holding fire. Beautiful, warm, but one wrong move, and it'd burn everything I'd worked for. I thought I knew what it meant to fight. Growing up in Rochester, I'd learned to push through grief after Mom died, to smile when the bills piled up, to keep going when every door slammed shut. But nothing prepared me for the moment. My phone lit up with a notification that turned my life into a public spectacle. It was like watching a wave crash over everything I'd built, and all I could do was brace for impact. It started on a Wednesday morning, right in the middle of a slow shift at Vine and Olive. I was wiping down tables, the restaurant quiet except for the hum of jazz from the speakers and the clink of glasses at the bar. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket, and I ignored it at first. Probably just Jasmine sending me a meme or a reminder about my econ quiz. But then it buzzed again and again, until it felt like the damn thing was screaming. I slipped into the break room, my stomach already twisting, and unlocked the screen. The first thing I saw was a text from Jasmine. "Ava, you okay? Check X. This is bad." My heart sank as I opened the app, scrolling past ads and random posts until I found it. A headline from NYC Gossip, one of those sleazy blogs that thrived on tearing people down. Billionaire Noah Bennett's secret fling. Who's the mystery waitress? Below it was a photo, blurry but unmistakable. Me and Noah at that taco joint in Williamsburg, sitting close, his hand on my arm. My face lit up with a laugh I barely remembered. We looked happy, unguarded, like two people who didn't know their world was about to crack open. The comments were worse than the headline. "Gold digger alert," one said. "Bennett's slumming it, LOL," another chimed in. Someone had already dug up my name, linking to an old LinkedIn profile I'd forgotten about, and the speculation was brutal. "She's just after his money. No way she's good enough for him." The worst one hit like a punch. What's a guy like Noah doing with trash like her? I stood there frozen, the break room's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My hands shook as I scrolled, each word slicing deeper. This wasn't just gossip. It was my life, my name, my dreams, being picked apart by strangers who didn't know me. I thought about Mom, how she'd fought so hard to give me a chance, how she'd be reading this if she were still here. I thought about Vine and Olive, about Tony's face if he saw this, about Dylan's smirk if he got wind of it. And Noah, what was he thinking right now? My phone buzzed again, a call this time. Noah's name flashed on the screen, and I almost didn't answer, too raw to talk. But I hit accept, my voice barely a whisper. "Hey, Ava, I saw it," he said, his tone tight, like he was holding back a storm. "I'm so sorry. My team's already on it. Lawyers, PR, the works. We'll get this taken down. Taken down? I laughed, bitter, leaning against the wall. Noah, it's everywhere. People are calling me things I can't even repeat. This isn't just a blog post. It's my life. I know, he said, softer now, but I could hear the strain. I'm handling it, I promise. Just don't look at it, okay? Let me fix this. I wanted to believe him, but the words felt hollow. Fix it how? With a press release? A lawsuit? None of that would erase the comments burned into my brain, the feeling of being exposed, judged, reduced to a headline. I have to go, I said, hanging up before he could argue. I needed air, space, anything to stop the spinning in my head. Back on the floor, I kept my head down, but it was like everyone knew. Dylan was at the bar, whispering to a busboy, both of them glancing my way. A regular customer, some finance bro who always over-tipped, gave me a smirk when I refilled his water, like he'd seen the article too. Yasmin pulled me aside during a lull, her face all worry. Ava, talk to me, she said, her hand on my arm. You look like you're about to bolt. I showed her my phone, the NYC gossip post still open. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. Oh, hell no. Who took this, and why are people such garbage? I don't know, I said, my voice cracking. But I can't do this, Jasmine. I can't have my life out there for everyone to tear apart. You can, she said, fierce. You're tougher than this. Don't let some blog tell you who you are. Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't stop the sinking feeling in my chest. I made it through the shift, but every laugh, every glance, felt like a spotlight I couldn't escape. When I got home, I collapsed onto my fold-out bed, the city's hum filtering through my window. My laptop sat on the coffee table, assignments waiting, but all I could do was stare at the ceiling, wondering how a photo, a moment that felt so right, could make everything feel so wrong. The next morning, things got worse. Tony called me into his office before my shift, his face grim, like he'd aged a decade overnight. He slid a printout of the article across his desk, the photo of me and Noah circled in red. Ava, we need to talk about this, he said, rubbing his temples. Customers are asking questions. It's disrupting things. I swallowed, my throat dry. Disrupting? Tony, I didn't ask for this. I'm just doing my job. I know, he said, but his tone was careful, like he was choosing his words for someone else. But perception matters. We've had complaints, people saying it's unprofessional, you being involved with a client like Bennett. Complaints? I leaned forward, my hands gripping the chair. From who? Dylan? Because he's been gunning for my shifts since I started. Tony sighed, avoiding my eyes. Doesn't matter. Point is, we need to keep things smooth. I'm asking you to take a few days off just until this cools down. For your sake. For my sake? My voice rose, heat flooding my cheeks. I've been here 3 years, Tony. I've covered shifts, stayed late, handled the worst customers you've got, and now you're sidelining me because of some gossip? It's not personal, he said, but it felt like a slap. It's business. I stood, my nails digging into my palms. Fine, but don't expect me to thank you for it. I stormed out, ignoring Dylan's smirk as I grabbed my bag. The subway ride home was a blur, my reflection in the window pale and angry. I'd given everything to that job, my time, my pride, my aching feet, and now it was slipping away because I dared to let Noah in. I thought about calling him, but what could he say? He was in his penthouse, safe from the fallout, while I was the one dodging stares and whispers. That night I called Yasmin. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm but worried. Ava, you holding up? Barely, I said. pacing my apartment, the floorboards creaking under my socks. Tony's got me on ice, the internet's calling me a gold digger, and I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to fix it, she said. This isn't your mess. It's theirs, those vultures online, whoever leaked that photo. You didn't do anything wrong, didn't I? I stopped, my voice breaking. I knew getting close to Noah was a risk. I knew his world wouldn't take me seriously. But I did it anyway. She was quiet for a moment, then firm. You followed your heart, Ava. That's not a mistake. It's brave. And Noah? He's in this too. Don't let him off the hook. Her words stuck with me, a spark in the dark. I hung up, my hands still shaky, and opened my laptop. Not to check X or read more comments, I'd learned my lesson there, but to pull up an old email, one from a customer I'd served at Vine and Olive months ago. She ran a small nonprofit, throwing community events on a shoestring budget, and I'd pitched her some ideas once, just to help out. She'd liked them, even asked if I'd ever consider freelancing. I'd brushed it off then, too buried in work and school. But now I needed something to fight for. I spent the next few hours drafting a proposal. Nothing fancy, just a plan for a fundraiser, with mood boards and a budget I'd crunched from memory. My fingers flew across the keyboard, the words pouring out like they'd been waiting for a chance. By 3 a.m., I hit send, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A reminder that I was more than a headline, more than a waitress caught in a scandal. The reply came faster than I expected. By noon the next day, my inbox pinged with a message from the nonprofit's director, Lisa. Ava, this is incredible. Can we meet to discuss? We'd love you to lead this. I stared at the screen, my coffee going cold in my hand. Lead it? Me? I'd never done anything like this, not officially, but the idea lit something inside me. A fire I hadn't felt since before the article, before the gala, before I started doubting myself. I was still processing when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another reporter fishing for dirt, but the message stopped me. Ava, it's Claire Hudson. Can we talk? Claire, the woman who'd thrown shade at me at the gala, wanted to talk? My first instinct was to delete it, but curiosity won out. I called her back, bracing myself. Ava, she said, her voice smoother than I remembered, like polished glass. I owe you an apology. For what? I asked, wary, sinking onto my couch. For judging you. She paused, and I heard the clink of a cup, like she was at some cafe. I saw the gossip post. It's vicious, and I'm sorry you're in the crosshairs, but I need to be straight with you. Noah's serious about you. I've known him forever, and I've never seen him like this. I blinked, caught off guard. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want what everyone expects, she said, her tone firm. My family, his mom, they think I'm the right match for him, but I don't love him, Ava. Not like you do, and he doesn't love me. He's fighting for you, even if it's messy. I sat there stunned, trying to wrap my head around it. Claire Hudson, the poster child for Noah's world, was rooting for me? So what do? I asked, my voice small. Fight back, she said simply. Not just for him, but for you. You're more than they're saying, and deep down, you know it. When I hung up, something shifted inside me. Not peace, not yet, but a spark, a reminder of the girl who'd promised her mom she'd make it. I wasn't just Noah's girlfriend or Vine and Olive's scapegoat. I was Ava Mitchell, and I was done letting the world write my story. I thought the NYC gossip article was the worst of it, that the sting of being called a gold digger would fade once the internet found a new target. But I was wrong. Scandal doesn't just die, it festers, spreading like ink in water, staining everything it touches. Noah and I were holding on by a thread, our stolen moments now shadowed by whispers and doubts. And just when I thought we could weather it, the storm got bigger, threatening to tear us apart for good. It started with a new wave of headlines. A few days after I landed the nonprofit gig, I was grabbing a coffee at a bodega near my apartment when my phone buzzed with an X alert. Another post, this time from a bigger outlet, Empire Insider. Noah Bennett's risky romance. Is his waitress fling sinking his empire? They dug up an old deal, a biotech startup Noah had backed a decade ago that crashed spectacularly, costing investors millions. The article twisted it, painting him as reckless, saying his distraction with me was proof he hadn't changed. My name wasn't in the headline, but it didn't need to be. The comments made it clear. I was the problem. The nobody dragging a billionaire down. I stood in the bodega, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease thick in the air, scrolling until my eyes burned. She's got to be playing him. Bennett needs to dump her before the board does it for him. Someone had posted a grainy photo of me leaving Vine and Olive, my apron slung over my shoulder, captioned, "This is who he's risking it all for. LOL." I shoved my phone in my pocket, my hands trembling, and paid for my coffee without tasting it. All I could think was, how did my life become this? Back at my apartment, I tried to focus on the fundraiser plan, but the words blurred on my laptop screen. Jasmine called, her voice a mix of worry and fury. "Ava, you seeing this insider crap? They're acting like you're the one tanking his company." "Yeah," I said, my voice flat, sinking onto my creaky fold-out bed. "I saw." "Don't let it get to you," she said fierce. "They're just mad Noah's not chasing some heiress. You're worth 10 of those people." I wanted to believe her, but the doubts were louder now, clawing at the edges of everything. Noah had been distant since the first article. Texts instead of calls, promises to handle it that never quite landed. I got it. He was a CEO, juggling a company that powered half the city's tech, but every unanswered message felt like a crack in the foundation we'd built. Was he pulling back because of the headlines? Or because he was starting to see what everyone else did? That I didn't belong in his world? I texted him, "We need to talk. Can you meet me?" His reply came fast. "Tonight, 8 p.m., Daisy's Diner in Williamsburg. I'll be there." Daisy's Diner was a dive, the kind of place with chipped mugs and a neon sign that flickered like it was on its last legs. I picked it because it was far from Vine and Olive, far from Noah's Tribeca penthouse, far from anyone who'd care about us. I got there early, sliding into a booth by the window, the vinyl squeaking under my jeans. The jukebox was playing some old Motown, and the air smelled like fries and nostalgia. I fiddled with a sugar packet, my nerves jangling like loose change. Noah walked in at 8 sharp, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usual polish was gone. No jacket, just a gray hoodie and jeans, his hair messy, shadows under his eyes. He slid in across from me, his knee brushing mine under the table, and for a second, I wanted to forget everything and just hold him. But I couldn't, not with the weight of the world pressing down. "Hey," he said, his voice rough. "You okay?" "No," I said, cutting to the chase, my hands clasped tight to keep them steady. "I'm not. This insider thing, it's not just about me anymore, Noah. They're coming for you, too." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know. The board's losing it. Stock's down. Investors are calling me every hour. My team's drafting a response, but it's a mess." "A response?" I leaned forward, my voice sharper than I meant. "That's your answer? Another statement? Noah, this isn't a PR problem. It's us, our lives." His jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. "What do you want me to do, Ava? I'm trying to protect you, protect the company. Thousands of people depend on me, employees, shareholders. I can't just..." Protect me? I cut him off, my chest tight. From what? The truth? Because right now, it feels like you're protecting your image, not us. That's not fair, he said, his voice low, almost a growl. You think this is easy for me? I'm getting hammered from every angle. My board, my mom, the press. And now they're dragging up that startup like I'm some kid who doesn't know what he's doing. I softened for a second, seeing the strain in his face, but I couldn't let it go. I get that you're under pressure, Noah, but I'm the one getting death threats on X. I'm the one Tony sidelined because customers think I'm unprofessional. You're still the guy with the corner office, while I'm out here fighting to keep my head above water. He reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine, but I pulled back, needing space. Ava, he said, quieter now. I'm doing everything I can, but this, it's bigger than us. Then what are we doing? I asked, my voice trembling. If it's too big, if I'm too much trouble, why are we still here? His silence hit harder than any answer. He looked down at the table, his hands clenched, and I felt my heart crack. I stood, grabbing my jacket, the diner's bell jingling in my head like an alarm. I can't keep being your secret, Noah, I said. I deserve more than that. Ava, wait, he called. But I was already out the door, the cold Brooklyn air stinging my face. Tears blurred the streetlights as I walked to the subway, my boots scuffing the pavement. I'd spent my life proving I was enough, for Mom, for myself, and I wasn't going to beg for it now, not even from him. The next day was a haze. I threw myself into the fundraiser plan, meeting Lisa at a coffee shop in Flatiron to go over details. She loved my ideas. String lights, local bands, a silent auction. And her enthusiasm was a lifeline, something to hold on to when everything else felt like quicksand. But even that couldn't drown out the noise. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, more articles, more comments, each one a reminder that I was still the girl in the photo, the one who didn't belong. Then came the call that almost broke me. I was walking home, cutting through Tompkins Square Park, when an unknown number flashed on my screen. I answered, thinking it might be Lisa with a quick question. Ms. Mitchell? A woman's voice, nasal and clipped. I'm with City Pulse. We've got a source saying you've been feeding Noah Bennett's competitors insider info about his company. Care to comment? I stopped dead, the park's chatter fading to a hum. That's a lie, I said, my voice shaking. I'd never do that. Who's your source? Can't say, she replied, smug. But if you've got a better story, like details on your relationship with Bennett, I can keep your name out of it. No comment, I snapped, hanging up, my hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped the phone. This wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a setup, someone trying to paint me as a traitor to ruin Noah and me both. Dylan? One of Noah's rivals? Hell, maybe even someone on his board. Whoever it was, they wanted me gone, and they were playing dirty. I sat on a park bench, the cold seeping through my coat, and tried to breathe. The city moved around me, dog walkers, skateboarders, a busker strumming a guitar, but I felt like I was underwater, everything muffled and heavy. I thought about Mom, how she'd tell me to keep fighting, but for the first time, I wasn't sure I had it in me. I didn't talk to Noah for 2 days. He texted, a few I'm sorry's, a can we talk? But I left them unanswered, too raw to face him. I stayed busy, finalizing the fundraiser details, meeting with vendors, anything to keep my mind off the hole in my chest. Jasmine noticed, of course, cornering me at her place one night while her daughter slept in the next room. You ghosting Bennett? She asked, pouring me a glass of cheap wine. 'Cause you look like you're carrying the whole city on your shoulders. I'm not ghosting, I said, swirling the wine, the glass cool against my fingers. I just need space. He's got his world to save, and I'm trying to save mine. She studied me, her eyes soft but searching. You love him, don't you? I didn't answer, but my silence was enough. She sighed, setting her glass down. Love's messy, Ava. But you don't get to quit just because it's hard. Talk to him. Figure it out together. I nodded, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. That night, I lay awake on my lumpy mattress, the city's hum filtering through my window, wondering if Jasmine was right or if letting go was the only way to keep from drowning. Then Noah showed up. It was past midnight, rain tapping my window like impatient fingers, when I heard a knock. I thought it was Jasmine, maybe dropping off something I'd forgotten. But when I opened the door, there he was, soaked, his hoodie clinging to his shoulders, his eyes raw with something I couldn't name. Ava, he said, his voice rough, like he'd been running. You didn't let me finish. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe, my heart pounding. I heard enough, Noah. You said it's bigger than us. That's pretty clear. No, it's not. He stepped closer, rain dripping from his hair, his breath uneven. I'm not good at this, Ava. I've spent my life building walls, deals, contracts, keeping everyone at arm's length, but you got through, and it scares the hell out of me because I don't know how to do this without losing you. My throat tightened, tears pricking my eyes. I wanted to push him away, to protect myself, but his voice, his presence, pulled me in. Then why are you here? I asked, barely a whisper. Because I can't lose you, he said, his hands finding my face, warm despite the rain. He kissed me then, not soft or careful, but desperate, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into it. His lips were hot, urgent, and I felt myself unravel, my hands gripping his wet hoodie as I kissed him back, just as desperate, just as lost. We stumbled into my apartment, the door clicking shut, the world shrinking to the space between us. His hands slid down my back, pulling me closer, and I felt the rain on his skin, the heat of him against me. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a confession, a promise, a plea. My fingers tangled in his hair, my body pressing into his, and for a moment, I forgot the headlines, the doubts, everything but the way he whispered my name like it was the only word he knew. But when we pulled apart, both of us breathing hard, I stepped back, my heart still racing. This doesn't fix it, I said, my voice shaky. I need more than this, Noah. I need you to choose us. I know, he said, his eyes searching mine, rain still dripping from his lashes. I'm trying, Ava. Give me time. I nodded, not because I was sure, but because I wasn't ready to let go, not yet. He left, the rain swallowing his footsteps, and I stood there, my lips still tingling, knowing we were standing on a cliff's edge. One wrong step, and we'd fall. I didn't sleep after Noah left my apartment, his kiss still burning on my lips, his plea for time echoing like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore. The rain kept falling outside, a steady drum against my window, and I sat on my fold-out bed, staring at the city lights through the glass. I wanted to believe we could make it, through the headlines, the whispers, the weight of his world and mine, but every step felt like walking on glass, sharp and ready to cut. Loving Noah wasn't just a risk. It was a leap, and I wasn't sure where we'd land. The next morning, I dragged myself to a coffee shop in Flatiron, hoping a double espresso and some noise would drown out my thoughts. The place was packed, baristas shouting orders, laptops humming, the air thick with the scent of roasted beans. I found a corner table, my notebook open to fundraiser notes, but my mind was elsewhere. My phone buzzed with a new X post, and against my better judgment, I checked it. Another anonymous account, tagged with Ava Bennett scandal. Noah Bennett's board is done with his drama. Step down or lose it all. Guess who's the problem? The comments were a mix of venom and glee. People betting on how long I'd last, how soon Noah would upgrade to someone like Claire Hudson. I closed the app, my hands unsteady, feeling like the ground was slipping beneath me. I was about to call Yasmin, needing her voice to pull me back, when my phone rang. It was Noah, his name lighting up the screen like a flare. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, but something in me knew I couldn't run from this. Not anymore. I answered, my voice cautious. "Hey, Ava, we need to talk," he said, urgency cutting through his usual calm. "In person. Can you come to my office? It's important." My heart kicked up, a mix of hope and dread. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect what little armor I had left, but the part that loved him, the part that still believed in us, won out. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there in an hour." Noah's office was on the 40th floor of a glass tower in Midtown, all sleek lines and polished steel, the kind of place that screamed power. I'd been there once before, but stepping out of the elevator now felt different, like walking into a storm I couldn't see. His assistant waved me in, and I found him behind his desk, papers scattered, his tie loose like he'd been tugging at it. He stood when he saw me, his gray eyes searching mine, but I kept my distance, arms crossed, my jacket still on like a shield. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He paced, his hands in his pockets, like he was trying to keep them from shaking. "I found out who leaked the photo," he said, his jaw tight. "It was my mom. She paid someone to tail us, to get that shot in Williamsburg. She thought if she made it bad enough, you'd walk away." I stared at him, the words sinking in, slow, heavy. His mom? Margaret Bennett, the woman I'd never met, but whose shadow hung over every gala, every whispered judgment. I'd known she didn't want me for Noah, but this was a knife, cold and deliberate. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper sinking into a chair. "Why go that far?" Noah stopped, his shoulders slumping. "She thinks she's saving me. The company, the family name, all of it. She spent her life building this idea of what I should be. A Bennett, untouchable. And you..." He looked at me, his eyes raw. "You don't fit that. Not because you're not enough, Ava. Because you're more. You're real. And that scares her." His words hit like a wave, washing away some of the doubt but leaving new questions in its wake. I didn't fit. Not in Margaret's world, not in the board's, maybe not even in Noah's, no matter how much we wanted to believe we could. I leaned forward, my hands clasped tight. "So what now? You let her win?" "No," he said, fierce, kneeling in front of me, his hands covering mine. "I told her this morning. She's out of my choices, out of my life, if she can't accept you. I'm done playing by their rules." I blinked, my breath catching. "You... what?" "I mean it," he said, his voice steady, his thumbs brushing my knuckles. "I've spent too long chasing their approval, board meetings, investor dinners, pretending I'm someone I'm not. I'm not losing you to that, Ava. I won't." Tears pricked my eyes, but I held them back, searching his face. "What about the company, the board, the stock? They're coming for you." He smiled, small but certain. "Let them. I've been thinking about this for a while. The company's strong. It'll survive without me at the helm. I want to do something else, something that matters. A foundation maybe for kids like you were. Smart, driven, but stuck in places like Rochester with no way out. And I want you with me." I sat there, speechless, my mind racing. Noah Bennett, the man whose name was on skyscrapers, was ready to walk away. For me, for us, for a dream I hadn't even known we shared. It was overwhelming, too big to hold, and yet it felt like the first clear moment in weeks. "What if it falls apart?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What if we're not enough?" "Then we'll figure it out," he said, squeezing my hands. "But I'm betting on us, Ava. Always will." Noah wanted to go public, not just to clear the air, but to take control of the story. He chose a gala at the plaza, the same one from the opening scene, a fundraiser for urban education that he'd helped organize. I was terrified. Facing a room full of cameras and power players wasn't my world. But when he asked me to stand with him, I couldn't say no, not after everything. I spent hours getting ready, Jasmine at my side, her laughter cutting through my nerves as she zipped me into that emerald dress. "You're a queen tonight, Ava," she said, pinning my hair up. "Don't let anyone tell you different." The plaza's ballroom was a dream. Chandeliers dripping light, tables set with lilies, the air humming with anticipation. I walked in alone, Noah's instructions clear. We'd keep our distance until his speech to avoid fueling more rumors. He was already there, working the crowd, his tux fitting like a second skin, his charm effortless as he shook hands. He caught my eye across the room, his smile quick but warm, and I felt a little steadier, even as the weight of every glance pressed down. When Noah took the stage, the room fell silent, cameras flashing like lightning. He didn't flinch, his voice clear and strong. "There's been a lot of noise about my personal life," he said, gripping the podium. "I'm here to set it straight. Ava Mitchell isn't just a colleague or a friend. She's the woman I love." The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling, but Noah kept going, his eyes finding mine. He talked about the foundation, about stepping back from Bennett Innovations to build something new, something for kids who'd never had a shot. "Success isn't a corner office or a stock price," he said. "It's about who you stand with when the world's watching." I stood there, my heart pounding, as he stepped down and walked straight to me, ignoring the hands reaching for him. He took my hand, his fingers threading through mine, and I felt the room fade away. No headlines, no board, just us, choosing each other in the light. He didn't propose, not yet, not here, but the promise was there, in the way he held me close, in the way he didn't let go. 2 years later, life looks different. Noah's foundation is thriving, funding coding camps and art classes for kids in places like Rochester, where dreams too often get buried. He's happier than I've ever seen him, trading suits for jeans, his laugh freer without the weight of a boardroom. I started my own event planning business, Mitchell Moments, with Jasmine as my partner, turning community centers into magic for people who'd never afford a plaza gala. It's small, scrappy, but it's mine, built from late nights and stubborn hope. We're not perfect. Margaret still calls me Noah's friend at family dinners, her smile tight as a drum. Some of Noah's old circle still whisper when we walk into rooms, their eyes lingering like they're waiting for us to crack. But we've learned to let it roll off, to focus on what's real. The mornings we burn toast in our Brooklyn apartment, the nights we brainstorm over pizza, the quiet moments when Noah's hand finds mine and I know we're home. One evening, we're sprawled on our couch, a Nina Simone record spinning, the needle crackling soft. I'm sketching ideas for a client's vow renewal and Noah's reading, his feet in my lap. He looks up, his eyes catching the lamplight, and asks, "You ever wonder where we'd be if we hadn't fought for this?" I set my pencil down, meeting his gaze. Sometimes. But then I remember I'd rather be here with you than anywhere else without you. He smiles, pulling me close, and I feel it, the peace of knowing we chose right, even when it hurt. Love isn't a fairy tale, I've learned. It's a choice, a stand you take when the world says you shouldn't. And every day, we choose it again, building a life that's ours, not theirs. Here's what I want you to carry with you. Your worth isn't in your job, your bank account, or what anyone says you should be. It's in the courage to chase what sets your soul on fire, even when it's scary, even when it costs you. So take the leap, stand in the light, and don't look back. You're enough. Always have been. Thank you for walking this road with Ava and Noah. If their stories sparked something in you, Hit that subscribe button to catch more journeys of love and grit. Drop a comment below. What's the boldest choice you've made for your heart? Let's keep this conversation alive.